Hi there, folks. Really looking forward to doing a kind of short presentation here for modern soccer coach and total football analysis. I'm going to look at the numerical superiority within the consolidation zone. This is a presentation that I did at the United Soccer Coaches Convention in 2019. So some of you may have already seen this, kind of looking at what the kind of numerical superiority is. And kind of what that looks like in terms of this kind of consolidation zone as well, and take you through some examples of it as well, some examples within the game, different ways that you can kind of create numerical superiority, and then also we'll look at some sessions that you can do from that as well. So it's a little bit about myself. I'm currently the head of the children's programme at Celtic Football Club for U8s to U13s. It's my 14th season here at Celtic as well. I formerly did the International Soccer Academy Managers Programme over in the US as well. So basically the purpose of this kind of presentation is going to be what is a consolidation zone. We'll look at that, the detail of numerical superiority and basically how we achieve that as well through practice, some strengths and weaknesses from within that, player qualities that were needed through technical and tactical input, a little bit of an example session. I've looked at some of the FIFA World Cup 2018 data as well, how that was kind of relevant, particularly towards the Belgian national team as well. So basically the consolidation zone, what is it? It's kind of this area of the pitch here. It's kind of probably about 20 yards, 25 yards either side of the halfway line. Sort of the biggest playing area. We speak about having 4 zones. The time, the build-up zone, just to the left-hand side, the consolidation zone, the incision zone, which is about 40 yards for a goal, and then the finishing zone, the last 20 yards of the field. It's something that I've kind of spoke about before in previous presentations on the incision zone as well. So this is the kind of dictionary definition of consolidation. So it's the action or process of making something stronger and more solid. So the whole idea is, can we become really strong in that area of the pitch? Can we outnumber the opposition? Hence creates that numerical superiority within there as well, but also not from an attacking sense, but also from a defending sense as well. It's going to make us really solid behind the ball. In terms of if we lose it, we're in a position to counter press as well. I'll touch on that a little bit as well, because I think that's important for the kind of cycles within the game. In terms of getting that numerical superiority, we look at the box and the diamond. I'm not going to look at the diamond just now, just because of kind of some time constraints, but mainly looking at the box within that as well. Again, we can speak about the diamond maybe in another opportunity in our presentation as well. We speak about no risk, low risk passes within this area. Can we keep possession? Can we dominate the ball to then break out of that area and break into that incision zone? For those of you who maybe don't know, I've kind of spoke about the incision zone before. It's kind of this area here, just between the edge of the box and the start of the consolidation zone. This area here, from the penalty box to the end, would be the finishing zone. And then just to the left-hand side, this would be a build-up zone. So that's the kind of 4 different areas, but we're looking at kind of this main area of the kind of consolidation zone within there just now anyway. And also it's the opportunity to break into that incision zone, and it's this controlling versus dominating possession. For me, you can control the game if you have the ball in your own half, but you can really go and dominate the opposition when you have the ball in their half. So it's not to say to players, just keep the ball and move from side to side. I think the opportunity is, we can keep the ball for 2 or 3 passes, but ultimately try and probe and try and get into that area. So we speak about to the players, can we dominate the opposition more than we can control it? But there'll be times that you have to come back, control, consolidate, create that numerical superiority before then go and dominating within the game in there as well. So how do we create that? So we're going to look at a starting formation of a 4-2-3-1. That's going to be a launch pad within that, and how we can morph into a 3-4-3. I said you can have the box, you can have the diamond, but I'm really going to look at the box and a couple of options within that as well. How the relationship between the players becomes key, and looking at the box high and the box low and the diamond. So as I said, I'll specifically look at the high and the low box. Again, it's just terminology that I use within that. You'll probably come up with something that's a little bit more suited to yourself or your club. I'll show a little bit on the diamond, but not going into it in too much depth or detail at the moment. So the detail of this, so looking at the 4-2-3-1 box high, so looking at this as our starting shape, so we have possession, we're coming out of the build-up zone and we're now into this consolidation zone. So some of the key points that we're looking at as we go to build the play up is that this launch pad to allow this numerical superiority. So the back 4, and particularly the centre backs, are going to provide us with this launch pad. You'll probably see that with the 4 and the 5, is where it's going to come from. That's not to say that you can't get the ball coming from the full-back areas. It's just probably the specific area of the pitch at the moment I'm going to look at. And this is where the fine detail for me starts to come in. You look at the positioning of the full-back at the moment. Now, it's narrow. So we speak about that being the kind of trigger for the box. So you can see the positioning of number 4 here. He's quite narrow in relation to where he is in the box. Now, if this player was here a little bit wider, that would then trigger the diamond for me. So we're just looking at the centre-back being a little bit more narrower at the moment. And for me, that was just quite easy for the players to understand. After a period of time, the centre-backs could understand as well that when we're starting to build the players a little bit wider, then it was a different trigger for the midfield players. So we're looking at them being that launch pad and being narrow at the moment. So again, hopefully that makes sense. So when they're narrow, the players in front of them realise this is going to be the box. Well, that's the number 10 to shift across and the number 7 to come into this sweet spot. I've used it and called it the sweet spot as well, but a lot of people kind of call this the half spaces. I think it's easy enough just to say to the players, it's this kind of area, kind of within the 6 yards and then the 18 yards. So it's just this area here that we're looking to try and get the players into. So you can see the positioning of 7, really good at the moment. For me, I probably wouldn't want, so they're excellent, I probably wouldn't want the number 7 to be out in this area just now, because for me it's not creating enough confusion and giving the opposition fullback something to think about. So with the number 10 moving across, number 10 has to vacate that area to clear that little bit of space to allow the number 7 to drop in there. And you can see already between the 7, the 6, the 10 and the 8, they're starting to give us that box and a kind of real good balance within there as well. So we'll use that as the triggers to allow the number 7 to come in, and then the 10 moves across for that sweet spot. You're 2 and 11, you have to go and provide you the width. I think if you're wanting to do this and morph into the 3-4-3, you need to have a fullback who's quite willing to go forward. I think when you look at Celtic just now with Jeremy Frimpong, before that Kieran Tierney, very, very willing to go forward. So if you have young players that fit that DNA and that profile to allow you to go and do that, so you have to give width. I think if you're fullback, particularly on the side that the wide player comes in, if they're not willing to go forward, you're going to find it really difficult. You're going to have possibly 4 behind the ball, your back 4, real lack of width. Although you'll have the kind of superiority in the middle, you have to have that width on both sides, certainly for me anyway. And then you're looking at the number 6, it's just dropping a little bit as well. And the reason for that, they're almost occupying 2 space. They don't quite become a fullback, but I think that's just to pose a little bit of a problem, because you can start to kind of see just now where these areas are and where it's going to start to cause issues for the opposition. So if you look at these areas here in particular, that's the type of area that we're looking to go and try and exploit just now. You've got your number 7 in the sweet spot of the half space. Your number 6 just dropped ever so slightly out of that area. So again, they've dropped out. What does the opposition do here? So opposition's got a real question here, a dilemma. Do they stay and block that pass into 7, or do they come with 6? Now, if they stay and block that pass, then your number 6 can go on the ball, and that still gives you that consolidation zone. You've still moved up the area, and you've still got that real numerical superiority. If the opposition decides to come with 6, then it's going to open that up into number 7 as well. So for me, it's about trying to create that little bit of confusion within there initially with the movement of 7, 10 and 2. And that allows us to go and play in, depending on what the opposition is doing within there. And then your 5, your 4 and your 3, for me, they swing round and they give you the kind of defensive positioning or the defensive organisation that when we start to move up the pitch, I would ask 5, 4 and 3 to almost go 10 yards into the opposition's half. That allows us to go and counter press as well. So I think we can touch on the defensive organisation, because you need to be tuned into the defensive organisation, especially when you're attacking within there as well.
We'll just take a quick break here. Thank you so much for watching the content at Modern Soccer Coach. If you would like to support what we're doing and help us provide more free coaching education with the webinars and the podcast and everything else, please take a look at this offer that we have from the webinars over the summer. Coaches can now download every single webinar tactical presentation that we did from the lockdown period over the summer. Just over $1 per webinar. You can personally download all 25 webinars that will be yours to keep. Each webinar is over 1 hour long and features a detailed presentation followed by live Q&A with the coaches in attendance. We cover topics such as youth and elite player development, sports science, tactical analysis, match preparation, goalkeeper pressing, and other key specific areas. We had coaches such as Jesse Marsh, Nolan Sheldon, Ivan Baregi, Adine Osman-Basic, Oliver Gage, Jonas Munkfall, Kat Smith, John Wall, and many more. modernsoccercoach.com/shop. You can go there, get yours now, support Modern Soccer Coach, help us provide free content with our webinars and podcasts throughout the year. Thank you.
So that's just some key points within there. I now want to put it in a kind of context of a game. So we'll have an opposition here playing against us in a 4-3-3. These are just some issues and problems that I've seen arise when doing this as a coach in games. So again, we're using the launch pad. Most teams play one up top. They may play two up top from time to time, but the idea is to be patient and keep possession, draw the striker out, and then we have this launch pad that we're speaking about. You see 10 moving across to vacate that area to allow 7 to come into that sweet spot. So here's the issue now, and this is the little scenario that I'm going to pose to the players as well. We now have the opposition fullback. They decide to stay. So this fullback here decides not to come in with our wide player. So he decides not to come into this area here. Then we've got a situation where we can possibly find our number 7 to give us that numerical superiority. Now, the fullback may come with him, depending on what the instructions are from the opposition coach, but we probably can't control that at the moment. I think what we can do is create a little bit of confusion within there, and that's just the information that I'm giving to the players in this kind of moment, is just create confusion. So number 4 launch pad is narrow for the box. 10 moves across, 7 comes in, 2 gives us a width, the number 6 drops in, and that creates that bit of confusion. So what I'm saying here is that the opposing wide player tracks really late. So you can see the number 7's come in. It's created confusion between their fullback and their wide player, which allows us to play in between. So I'm saying now their opposing midfield player now has a problem. They stick a twist with their number 6. In this scenario, they've decided to go and press the opposition. Because we've created a little bit of confusion in the wide areas, it allows us to play that one pass. Now, you look at the 5 that we now have attacking, so it's that killer pass. Remember what we spoke about is that defensive organisation in behind, and probably the easiest way to again put this across to the players is basically attacking with 5, defending with 5. So you can see here we have our 5 behind the ball, which gives us that strong defensive organisation, and then we can go and attack with 5 in the top area as well. So that's probably the easiest way to look at it. Now, depending on kind of what opposition you're playing against, you may want to afford maybe your number 8 to go forward and attack with 6 and defend with 4. But I think that gives you a really good balance. So just now we have a 5 versus 5 in that middle area. Maybe your 8 can break in and give you that extra player within there as well. So I think then it's really important that the defensive organisation in behind, and we can then start to squeeze the game, because that allows you to counter press and suffocate the opposition. Now, the position of 3, 5 and 4 just now, for illustration purposes, is about 10, 12 yards in our own half at the moment. I would flip that. I would ask them to be 10 yards in the opposition's half. So we're really keeping the game small. And I'll show you some of the data from the 2018 World Cup, where even in and out of possession now, I think certainly the modern game at the moment is played in really tight areas. We are quite expansive going forward at the moment here, but when we start to condense the game, we're probably going to be in a 30 to 35 metre radius or a certain area from length to width to be able to go and press the opposition to suffocate as well. Another little example I'll give you is the box low. So first time we had the number 7 coming at the top of the box. So we'll look at it from the left-hand side again. We build this launch pad to allow it. Number 5's narrow. So that's the trigger for the box. Number 10 moves across. This time it's going to be a little bit different. Number 8 will jump up with number 11 dropping down and number 3 giving the width. So again, that allows us to go and play. So if we have the opportunity to play up and over the press this time, I think that with the number 11 coming in, that's going to create a real bit of confusion with the opposition. So you can see this is looking totally different now. You've now have your number 11, who's at the bottom of the box, your number 8 at the top of the box, your number 3 providing width. Now, again, if you're wanting to do this with your players, you may think that your fullback has got better capabilities, your left fullback than your right fullback, or be able to go forward. Because if they run forward, they better be able to run back the pitch as well and do the kind of dirty side of the game at the same time as well. But you can kind of look at this here. You've got your 5 attacking, then your 5 behind the ball. As 3 starts to advance, everyone would squeeze within there as well. So it was just to allow number 11 to drop in, 8 to jump up, and 3 to give you the width on that as well. And again, we'll look at it in a kind of game context as well. So can we beat the press of the striker? Number 5's narrow, trigger for the box. Number 10 moves across, and this is so important. And you probably see at this moment in time, our number 10's maybe not actively in possession of the ball, but their movement is key to everything that we do. Because if that number 10 doesn't move from that position, there's no space for the number 8 to go into. So it's really important, even if that number 10 drops across just now, and again, there's different scenarios that will happen that maybe we can't quite control from a opposition's point of view, but with the number 10 moving across here, if this opposition player decides to stay, then you can look at it there. If you have the quality of the player to be able to play that pass in behind, making sure that your number 10 isn't hiding in between. But again, we're looking at this, that number 10 is going to attract that number 6 and that defensive midfield player to drag him across to allow the space for number 8. So again, 10 moves across, 11 drops in, and this is where it creates the confusion that the fullback for them has decided to drop in. So you can see in this area here, the fullback's dropped in and left this huge space, and this is where it creates the confusion. For me, defending against this, I would just say to my wide player and my fullback, as soon as that number 11 gets to a certain point, you just pass on, because you don't really want your fullback to come out of there. Because right now, all I'm saying to a number 5 is play it up and over the press. Because again, this holding midfield player is probably being dragged across to the ball as well. Even if he's not, the ball here, automatically, a centre-back's getting dragged out. You've left a 2v1 in the box, and you're probably then saying to your opposite wide midfield player, can you get in the box? Can we go and support there as well? And again, we're now getting numerical superiority within the opposition's box in that finishing zone as well. So I think that becomes so key to create that little bit of confusion. And saying to your players as well, it's not all about playing those little short passes in between. You can go up and over the press as well. Now, if that fullback had stayed in and they had quite a tight block, then I would just be playing around them and trying to play short passes, because obviously if you play short passes and you lose the ball, you're in a better player to go and counter press. But again, as soon as that ball's played up and over the press, then we're looking for the 5, the 4 and the 2 to swing round, and we all go and press. And again, we've got the balance behind the ball of the 5 and attacking 5 as well within there as well. So these were just some examples from the U16s at the time when I was working with them. But we tried it in a game at Lennoxtown against Motherwell. You can see the picture on the top left-hand side, where I've asked a wide player to come in and create that numerical superiority, 4 versus 2. So you can see that in this little example here, 4 versus 2, and we've got width on the opposite side from our fullback here. So I think that becomes really important. I'll just highlight the fullback in this area just now. He's really giving us that width on that side, and that becomes important, because for me, if they're too far back and they're still in this area here, for me, you don't really want that safe pass just to go to the side. But you see with the fullback playing high, it pins their fullback in. We've managed to bring their wide player in, and it's creating so much confusion at the moment. That's exactly what we wanted to try and do within this game. Then we move on to the next picture, which is just below, bottom left. So we've drawn the opposition in with short combination passes, 4 versus 3. So you can just see in this scenario here, we've got 4 versus 3, and this is this incision zone area that we can kind of looking to go and break into. And again, we play away from pressure and we attack their back line within the incision zone. So all of a sudden, we've managed to draw them in, dominate the ball 4 versus 3, and then break into that final third as well. Again, short combination passes to draw them in. Fullback still giving us width, and that allows us to go and break into that sort of final third within there as well. And I think if you look at the box high and low, looking at the strengths and weaknesses, and again, depending on possibly the players that you have and maybe their technical and tactical understanding in the age group that you're working with as well. Here's what I think the strength is. I'll give us their 4 versus their 3. So if they play 4-2-3-1, 3-5-2 or 4-3-3, it's always going to give us more. unless they maybe play a 4-4-2 diamond and try to match up 4 versus 4, there is another way that you can get out of that. But again, I'm not going to speak about that. It's maybe another presentation or WebEx that we can do later on. I think it gives problem for the opposition fullback and their wide player, so creating that confusion within them. And it allows us to dominate the ball and impose our playing style. I think you should be saying to your players, go and impose your style within the game. The opposition will have spells where they have the ball. Can we go, because of our attacking position, when we lose it, we can win the ball back on that defensive transition. We have to really go and impose our style and our play on the opposition as well. Creates that confusion with the rotation, but ultimately gives you that strong balance behind the ball. When you get into a diamond, you actually attack with 6 and you defend with 4. Again, I still think you've got enough numbers behind that, because if you're playing against an opposition that maybe only play 1 striker and they've maybe got a number 10 and 2 lazy wingers, that gives you your 5 versus 4. But if their 2 wingers drop really low, do you need 5 versus 2? Absolutely not. You can afford another couple of players to go forward, but speaking to the players that you've got that strong balance behind the ball. So weaknesses for me, I think sometimes the body shape of your wide players and potentially your midfield players as well, if they're going to come in shoulder square towards the ball and they take the first touch back in, then it's going to allow the opposition to get behind the ball, get set, and possibly figure out the little kind of problem that we've given them. If you've got a lack of width from your fullback and they're hesitant, then you're probably going to find it difficult, because the opposition fullback will play a little bit higher and possibly their opposition wide player will play a little bit higher as well. So I think you're saying to your fullbacks, be comfortable at going forward, almost become like a wide player for us, the guy in front of you. And the easiest way I say to them is that when they're working in partnerships, is playing a different line. Now, and again, it's for another possible presentation about the level of detail you have to get into, but you can get your fullback coming in to that bottom of that box and your wide player stays wide. So it's just about playing in different zones and in different areas for that as well. And again, is it a possible weakness? Do we not have enough numbers attacking? Again, it really depends on the opposition that you're playing against as well, but can you afford one of them to go forward as well? So I think if you as a coach, if this is your preferred style or the way you want to play, you'll maybe have more strengths and weaknesses from within that as well. And again, some of the player qualities that you'd probably look for, technically, awareness out of possession, so scanning to pick up areas, the body shape to break the lines, able to receive in the move. Again, that was another presentation that I did in January there at the convention in Baltimore about receiving and releasing the ball on the move. And from tactically, can you have that versatility in and out of possession, recognising the triggers. So the centre-back's narrow, the centre-back's wide. Can they recognise what type of movement, the organisation behind the ball, and recognising the areas to hurt the opposition as well tactically, understanding what is their strengths, what are their weaknesses, how can we go and exploit them within there as well. And this was some data from the World Cup. I looked at Belgium. You can see here from the middle picture, it's almost perfect for this 3-4-3 box that they had. But again, you look at the area in which they're playing in as well. Not quite the full width of the pitch, but 30 by 40 metres. So it's amazing. And when you look at them out of possession, it's 34 by 27. It's not a huge difference. But again, for me, I think because Belgium in particular could get into a really good defensive position quickly because of their offensive position, it was easy for them to drop back down into that 5 very, very quickly, or the 4, and just suffocate the opposition as well. So it's really interesting. You can see how far they're playing from their goal as well. It's such a short area. And if you look at some of the stats within it as well, 94% of their goals were scored inside the penalty area, so breaking the lines and maybe getting cutbacks from the wide areas as well. 15 goals from open play, and 1 was from set play as well. I'm not too sure how many goals they actually conceded within the tournament, but this kind of overall snapshot kind of sums them up. And I've highlighted the keywords in yellow, so probably the most free-flowing. They're technically gifted, incredibly versatile. So we spoke about that versatility from a tactical standpoint. They attacked as a team. They won 6 of their 7 matches, but they didn't concede many goals in spite of their attacking approach. So I think that the things that we just spoke about there in terms of the numerical superiority just summed up in that kind of little snapshot there. So I thought that was important, that it's something we look to do at Celtic as well. But I think from a kind of national team standpoint, seeing top teams do it at the top level as well. And again, quickly, how do we coach this within sessions? So kind of simply set up, you have a back three at each end, 3 versus 3 in the middle, and 2 wide players. And basically all you can do is get the ball to go across the back three. When it comes back into the central player, they're narrow, so it's the trigger for the box. We ask the number 6 to drop down, number 8 to play in a different line, the number 10 playing behind, and we get the number 7 in, and the number 2 provides a little bit of width. And basically all we're saying now to number 5 is that you have to play the ball into this middle area and play 4 versus 3. This is live, so we speak about the opposed and unopposed. This is an opposed one. You can easily take these middle 3 players out if you're just introducing the players to it, but certainly if you're the players that are understanding it, put a little bit of pressure on them for them to recognise. And I just say to these middle 3 players, go and play normally, go and play, it's a full pressure. So playing possession needs to understand, we've got our 4 versus 3. If they're all picked up like this, they start ball into the number 7. In this scenario, I'm just looking at the ball getting played out, but can they maybe keep possession, get turned, play it out there, and basically the guys on the outside rotate. So number 2 moves up, 5 moves across, and then the players in the middle all go back to their area here. You see number 11 within that build-up phase stays out because they're giving us that little bit of width, and then you drop back down and we basically start down the other side. 5 to 2, back into midfield, and can we play out the other side with 2, providing that little bit of width on that side. So the kind of discovery phase practice of it, taking it in, we'll probably just show you this ever so slightly. This is the diamond one, that when it comes back out, sorry, it's not a diamond one, it's the box low option. So it comes back in, you get number 10 to move across, your number 6 moves up this time, and then your number 7 drops down. So that still gives you the 4 versus 3, with your 2 becoming wide. And again, you can put both of these options in at the one time, or it can just be one option, or you give the players the option, what they want to play in. Sometimes it's maybe been a little bit prescriptive at the start if you're just introducing this, but again, we've had the number 7 drop down, number 6 runs up. It's that communication between the players. And again, if they decide to lock on like this, can we play our number 6 to play out, and then we have everyone else in and behind. And you can still speak about the defensive structure and the organisation and behind the ball as well. And again, ball coming across, dropping in. This is the one that we can just speak about, the diamond. They're a little bit wider. Number 6 would drop down this time. Number 8 would go up. Number 7 in. Number 2 up. And number 10 in behind. So you can see the diamond in the 4 versus 3 here. So again, not spoke about that in much detail. Not going to speak about it here either, but just to give you a little bit of an idea where it can go in and out. And everyone moves across. Then moving into the rondo practice. It's very, very similar. You're almost just kind of taking the mannequins out, becoming live. 7-11, 2 neutral players, back 3 on the outside, and you have your middle 3. If you've got extra numbers, you can maybe have a back 4 at each side, or you could have a 7-11 in both teams. But again, just for the purpose of this kind of works with your neutral players. So again, we're just looking for the back 3 to go and build it. Showing the option of the diamond within here because he's wide. So number 6 would drop down almost in between to protect that little gap. 8 would move up, 10, and then we're looking to get number 7 in. And all we're saying is that the ball must come into this middle area because we have the diamond. And you can see that we're allowing the number 2. He needs to recognise that because it's basically just a passing exercise. So when you go into this the first time with your players, you'll probably recognise that the number 2 just stays in. You're saying, well, remember what we spoke about, you have to get width from your fullback, especially if your wide player's coming in. And then we can have that balance behind the ball. And ideally, the ball goes into this area. It becomes a 4 versus 3 possession with the idea to transfer it to the Reds. When the Reds get it, there's a transition. So they're now attacking. How quickly can the Greens get set back in on the defensive transition? And then the focus becomes in the Reds. You can do it another way as well. You can make the back 4 neutral players so the team in possession always has the ball. But sometimes the players moan because they keep it and they give it up the top and they lose possession. But I try to say this about the moments of the game. So we're now attacking. We've tried to go through. We've lost it. Have we got good position for that counter press as well? Just a way to get the players to understand what we're trying to achieve. So the ball might come in, we keep possession, and it goes out the other side. Then you're looking for your 2 to make a recovery run. 7 goes back out, and it's now the Reds for the focus for that. And it's a rondo practice. It keeps going. You can even add small goals in as well, that they maybe build up the play and hit the small goals. And the kind of final part of it is going into a phase of play. So I have my back 3, my middle 2, well, deep line 2-8-6. In the front 4 within there, and just playing against a 4-3 basically. So the Reds, if they win possession, they play and dribble up over the halfway line. Whereas the back players here, I'm looking at 5, build the play, because he's narrow. Can we recognise it? 10 moves across, 8 moves across, 6 moves up, 7 drops in, box low. 2 gives us that little bit of width. Ball's played in, then we have that numerical superiority. And 5 and 3 start to swing round. Now, it's not a full 11-a-side, but it certainly starts to give the players the idea from here. And then can we just go and play to a finish? It's just a phase of play almost, waves of attack. Reds play up over the halfway line, as I said, or maybe put some counter goals in the wide area. But I think that's a way that you can take the session from the idea of just an opposed or unopposed passing into your rondo, into your phase of play. And then you could get into a game with maybe the idea of that we want to try and create that numerical superiority. The loose here, and then number 7 can start to play forward. So, guys, it was a kind of whistle-stop tour of it. There's obviously a lot more information and detail to go in behind that, but kind of wanted to give you an idea of the theory behind what we're trying to do, the strengths and weaknesses, the detail, and a little bit of the session. So again, if it's something that we get a little bit of feedback on and people want to know a little bit more about, happy to go into that in a little bit more detail as well. But hopefully you find that informative, and thanks again for having the opportunity to kind of show. That was my contact details that were on there as well. And again, as I said, if there's anything you would like to kind of chat about within that as well, then by all means, just ask me. But again, thanks very much. And hopefully everybody's staying safe at this moment in time as well. And brilliant that everybody in the kind of football and soccer world is sharing content at the moment as well. So all the very best. Cheers.